8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
The world is not prepared.
2.
What's next?
1.
Welcome, mere mortals and amateurs of the world of science and physics alike, to part 2 of my very own self-described Barbenheimer weekend, where of course I'll be reviewing 2 of the biggest movies of the year, Barbie and Oppenheimer. Honestly, I don't even know why I'm doing this weird scientist impression. I'm honestly just kind of sounding like Severus Snape right now. But yes, if you haven't caught up with part 1 of my very own Barbenheimer weekend, you can check it out in the description below, where of course I reviewed part 1 of the Barbenheimer phenomenon, Barbie, which yes, you can watch in the video that I've linked in the description below. And actually I had a really fun time doing it. Honestly, you know, again, with this kind of, you know, internet movie trend, you don't really see this every day. But of course, for those who still haven't caught up with the Barbenheimer trend, I don't know if you've been living under a rock, but I'm not going to really delve too much into the details as I really described it more in detail in part 1 of my Barbenheimer weekend when I reviewed Barbie. But yes, just to briefly recap, it is the latest internet and movie trend that's spreading around the internet like wildfire right now. Mainly because these 2 movies, Barbie and Oppenheimer, are being released on the same day this year on July 21st, 2023. And even though these are 2 completely polar opposite films, you know, a lot of people have been picking out and pointing out similarities between the 2 actually. The film's main characters both go through an existential crisis about their roles in society. Both feature big ensemble casts. Both were made by a well-known acclaimed filmmaker. Both produced under husband and wife companies, which for Oppenheimer's case, it was produced. One of the production companies was Synopsis, which is owned and created by Christopher Nolan and his wife. And for Barbie, it was one of them was Mattel Films, which obviously Mattel was made by Ruth Handler and her husband Elliot Handler. And both questioned the ideologies, morals, and role of humanity itself. So yes, continuing on the Barbenheimer trend, this is going to be part 2 of my very own self-described Barbenheimer weekend, where in this video today, I'll be reviewing the movie Oppenheimer, part 2 of the Barbenheimer phenomenon. Now I'm actually going to put my hat down because even though I was meant to wear it for the entirety of the video, but it's getting really hot with no aircon in this room, so. But anyways, let's get right on to the review, shall we? And also, let me try to get this over with quick because I'm actually starting to sweat already. So right at the bat, like with the Barbie movie, this movie has an insane, big, massive, stellar ensemble cast. You know, you got the likes of Cillian Murphy, finally in a starring role in one of Christopher Nolan's films, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, Josh Hartnett, Casey Affleck, Kenneth Branagh, Rami Malek, Dane DeHaan, Josh Peck even, Jack Quaid, Tony Goldwyn, who is one of the political figures in the movie, who actually voiced Tarzan in the Disney Tarzan film. You even have Gary Oldman in a minor cameo role as US President at the time, Harry Truman, who kind of looks like he's just Winston Churchill again from his film Darkest Hour. You even have Devin Bostic, who was Roderick from the Diary of a Wimpy Kid films, of all actors to include in this film as well. Yes, Roderick himself is in Oppenheimer. And there's also Tom Conti, who stars as Albert Einstein. Yes, Albert Einstein is also in this film. But speaking of the cast, let's talk about the acting in this movie, which I think this movie is probably the best acting of the year so far. First one, Cillian Murphy, obviously starring as the titular J. Robert Oppenheimer himself, and I think he really pulls off in portraying both a very smart physicist, but also one with a developing guilty complex, you know, one where his mind is constantly building up pressure, stress, and regret in himself. You know, you can clearly see that he is going through some very conflicting views in his own mind without outwardly expressing it. You can clearly tell that inside his mind he's going through some shit. I think he's such an underrated actor, you know, he's incredible in the film. I bet it's gonna, really raise his career. This is probably the best acting of his career so far, and I think he's probably gonna be up there, for best leading actor for this year. The second standout, Robert Downey Jr., man. Really cool and awesome to see him back on the big screen since Avengers Endgame. Well, of course there was Doolittle, but I haven't seen that film, although I did hear it was really bad. But yeah, in a big scale spectacle film like this, yeah, first time seeing RDJ back, and yeah, I really do miss the guy because, his acting, man, is so good in this movie as well. He's really good at portraying, kind of nice guy, Louis Strauss, but also one with, hidden, secret, darker intentions. Once you get to, throughout the film, especially towards the ending of the film, throughout the third act, you can clearly see, he's really trying to hold himself together to, really not, because he really wants to take down J. Robert Oppenheimer. And yeah, similar to Cillian Murphy, I think Robert Downey Jr. is going to be up there for Best Supporting Actor of the Year with this film. The second biggest highlight and the second most favorite thing about this movie for me is the sound. You can really feel the intensity and suspense of the blast of the atomic bomb. And, so much so that it really wants to make you embrace yourself, When it came to, the testing the bomb scene, the big scene of the movie, when it got to the countdown, I was immediately preparing myself and embrace myself, covering my ears for the blast that was about to come, because I knew it would be really loud and big, and let me tell you, it really did not disappoint. Even with my ears covered, it was still pretty loud. So much so that it pretty much, I felt some minor tremors and shaking within my seat. And I really love the attention to detail in this movie, because in science, the speed of sound is much slower than the speed of light. It's when they were testing, bomb prototypes, there is a delay in sound that comes with the blast. So, you see the blast first, and then the sound comes just a few, 1 second or a few milliseconds later. I love that attention to detail because it really keeps up with the theme that this is also a really scientific movie. But also there's a recurring musical theme or motif in this movie where, the music slowly, gradually, dramatically, and continuously gets louder and louder and louder and louder and louder, building up the tension, suspense, intensity, and magnitude of a lot of scenes in this movie, metaphorically as though the film and its scenes are also literally a ticking bomb. It's something similar that you get in a horror film too, except this is not a horror film, but you do kind of see this with with the cliche slow walk towards danger, and with this it's more the ticking bomb getting close to 3, 2, 1, boom, that sort of thing. And I really love that attention to detail again. Though honestly, the sound I was hearing when I watched it, I felt it was coming more from the screen itself rather than, from the surround speakers that were all around us inside the theater, which I was kind of expecting, the surround sound to come into play, Dolby surround sound. I'm not sure if that was actually used in the movie, but I don't know. I don't know if it was just the movie theater's problem, or maybe it was just me, which honestly doesn't really change my overall thoughts on the sound effects in this movie anyway. The cinematography in this film, or the way this film was shot, was also really cool to see, or really incredible. There were some really amazing shots in the movie. And yeah, the way it was shot, it really goes to show how much of a genius Christopher Nolan is as a filmmaker of our time. And apparently this movie is the first of its kind to shoot using IMAX black and white film photography, which is I guess that's the reason why the black and white scenes in this movie look so good in IMAX. The practical effects to achieve, the effects in this movie, or the visual effects in this movie, the bomb blast, for example, obviously. Although I think they did admit that they did use very, very minimal CGI, which I guess makes sense because to use actual nuclear weapons to pull off, these visual effects, I think you probably need to go through some political and forms and stuff in order to, be allowed to do that. But yeah, Christopher Nolan is also really well known for using practical effects and not really relying so much on the use of CGI, and the fact that he was able to pull all this off, especially for a film like this, again, it really goes to show the genius that Christopher Nolan is.
In the case of this film, I wrote the script in the first person. It's the only time I've done that. It made it clear to anyone who read the script that we're on this ride with Oppenheimer.
I also really like the writing in this movie as well. You know, there are references to quotes that the real-life J. Robert Oppenheimer said in real life as well at his time. You know, for example, for instance, the infamous "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds" quote, which he took from another source at that time. And, you know, the fact that J. Robert Oppenheimer and Albert Einstein actually met in the movie. Yes, this happened in real life too, although they only knew each other by name, and it wasn't until like much later in life that they finally met in person. But also, can we just agree that, you know, war films might as well just be Christopher Nolan's style, best style of filmmaking or genre of films, you know, his biggest strength or magnum opus? I mean, I don't know, kind of makes sense to me. Also, I thought it was just personal fun, just picking out or remembering all the science facts, you know, especially quantum physics that go behind the construction and, you know, the way that, you know, nuclear weapons happen, which, yeah, they involve the element uranium with an atomic mass of 235, which, how do I even remember this? I feel like I sound like such a nerd right now, but yeah, this is stuff I remember from learning from, you know, the IB International Baccalaureate curriculum in high school, and yeah, it's still stuck in my brain apparently. One of the things I think is important to mention about this movie, though, is that even though it's taking place at that time, like a typical war movie does, this is more of a drama, deep character study film, which I bet is something that a lot of people didn't expect to see going into this film. Because yes, this movie revolved around a lot of politics, and it involved more the political side of the story than I thought. Not just with the governmental relations, you know, between the United States government, Oppenheimer, and other characters in this film, but especially with the politics, ethics, and morality of the construction and use of atomic and nuclear weapons, you know, in particular at that period of time. But also in a character study film like this, with such heavy topics such as, you know, nuclear weapons, I know it's immediately, you know, bound to strike out conversations, but from both sides of the argument. Which suffice to say that this movie, for me personally, in my opinion, was a bit long. You know, there were definitely some shots where I felt like they were held on for too long, or there were some scenes that I felt that they could have just been cut short of time. I felt it was a pretty slow-paced film. I mean, again, it's a deep character study of J. Robert Oppenheimer, which I appreciate. But yeah, there were definitely some scenes that could have been cut and could have made this movie a bit shorter than you know, than the 3-hour runtime that it is. But yeah, not entirely a major problem though. And like I said, this movie is not really big on action, you know, especially in the aftermath of the final tests of the atomic nuclear bomb and subsequently its consequences, you know, with the US going forward with, you know, going to use those to drop the bombs onto Japan. Yeah, those kind of scenes weren't shown. Not much of the actual war was shown. It was just kind of, you know, just stated and mentioned a lot of times throughout the film. But yeah, those are pretty much all my thoughts on the movie. But at the end of the day, even though this is a film not entirely, you know, reliant on action, especially in the time period that it took place in, which normally audience would expect from a typical war film, and this film focuses more on the political side of things. Well, one, this is not your ordinary war film. And two, the true golden high points and highlights of this movie can be attributed to its outstanding acting, amazing cinematography, brilliant sound, the way that this film was shot and made with its format of film and practical effects, the cool writing, and the way that the film is a deep character study of not only Oppenheimer's life, but also the politics, ethics, and morals behind the construction and use of atomic nuclear weapons in general, including Oppenheimer's own conflicting views. And of course, this goes without saying, this movie is totally worth watching in any IMAX theater near you. As much as I'm eager to get this movie a complete, full, perfect score of 10 out of 10, I'm gonna go ahead and give this movie a 9.8 out of 10, but I'm still gonna give this movie an A+. There's actually two more things that I want to do to celebrate the Barbenheimer trend and phenomenon that's sweeping the world right now. But, so I guess it's not going to be a Barbenheimer weekend so much of anymore. It's probably going to be more of a Barbenheimer week on this channel, which I'm okay with changing it right now. So yes, two more things related to Barbie and Oppenheimer. I'm not going to say what they are now, but if you want to find out, you're just going to have to wait and see. So if you want to tune in and if you're interested in finding out what they are, make sure to leave a big thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed my review on Oppenheimer, as that will help it a lot. As the more videos get likes, the more they get recommended on YouTube's recommended homepage, which I guess I'm aware that that's how the algorithm works. But for those who are new to this channel, if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to this channel so you can tune in for more content like this, where I cover movies and potentially TV shows in the future. You can find all that kind of content related to movies and TV shows on this channel, Ryan World Movies. And as always, let me know in the comments below what you thought of Oppenheimer. Have you gone to see it? And if so, what did you think of it? Did you like it or did you hate it? Or if you haven't been able to see it, also let me know in the comments below why. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next videos for when they come up. So I'll just sign off right here and I'll just sign off by leaving you off by saying, take care guys, have a good night. Rhinos, roll out, take care. Good night.